Mr. Nelson.
What's up? What's up? Okay, so what I'm doing is right now we got a room of about 75 people at the Creative Call, and I got you on speaker. Your beautiful face is on the screen behind me.
What's up, everybody? Amazing voices.
Yes, I'm so grateful that you will hop on a call with us for a little bit, and that we get to ask you some questions and get your thoughts and input. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Yep.
Okay, can I share just one of my favorite moments with you?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to a time that we are in my hometown, the city that I grew up in, and we're shooting your music video for an incredible song called "One Thing" on your album Glory Hour, and I'm project managing it and getting it ready. But then I get to the city and we're there, and my favorite moment was when you are sitting on my childhood bed, and you are just singing. You know, you're singing. You brought your guitar, and literally the childhood bedroom and I'm gonna tell you my honest thought. I literally think to myself, I got a Grammy award-winning artist sitting in my room, singing her heart out. And I realized that it was actually a fulfillment of a dream for me, and that was one of my favorite moments with you.
Oh, that was special. That whole time down there in was it South Bay?
Yep.
Did I say it right? Yeah, that was a good time. My favorite part about that experience was everyone's accent.
Yeah, yeah, it was that southern accent.
I loved it.
Yeah, so I want to ask you a couple of questions. First, are you more of a homebody or on the go kind of person?
If I'm on tour, at first I feel homesick, but then it becomes my normal pace of life. And then when I get home, I feel tour sick. Like I miss being in a new city every day. And it takes me a while to adjust to being at home. And then once I adjust, tour comes back again. And so I have to adjust to the road. So I can adjust to either.
Yeah. Can you hear me good?
My preference.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I can hear you. My preference. I'm learning to enjoy being still, because you have the illusion of productivity when you're moving a lot, and that illusion is very dangerous because you will feel satisfied that you've accomplished a lot, but all you did was just move around a lot. And then when you're at home, you don't have that illusion. You just have the facts of what you accomplished. And sometimes it's not that impressive.
That was the first question. There is a moment that we were driving. I think we were driving to South Bay or driving to your hotel when we touched down, and I'd seen you. You know, you had been on like 3 different phone calls. By the time I picked you up, it's like late at night. I'm like, what time zone are those people in? Because I know how late it is here, and and you had like 3 different conversations, and I asked you a question. I asked you, how do you do it all? And the fastest response, you said worship. And could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I did this performance. It was probably the biggest performance of the year I did last year. It was for this gala honoring Jay-Z at the Brooklyn Public Library. And they personally requested that I be the featured artist for the evening. And I thought, well, this is a label that could pick anyone, Rihanna or, J. Cole, any of the people that are on their label. But they specifically asked for me, and I took that as, like a like a Daniel kind of moment, Daniel in Babylon kind of moment, where someone in power just remembers there's like this person who carries the power of God, and we want them to come and share and, have the focal point of this moment to share what they have to share. And I just felt like I was on an assignment from the kingdom of God. I went in there singing a song I wrote called A Love Song from God. And it was just really bold. It was just like, the most gutsiest thing. Because, like, one of the lyrics, it says, don't you ignore, open the door, let me in. I'll be like a force of wind in you. Your spirit is poor. I see you searching for more. Let me in, and I'll be like a fire burning inside you. And this is from the perspective of Jesus, singing to all these powerful people. And I just remember like pulling it off and getting a standing ovation when I was done. Like Jay-Z led the standing ovation, and you had like just a lot of power in that room, from government officials and to all sorts of different folks. And I remember just feeling so proud, like God gave me this special assignment, and I didn't fumble. I didn't pretend to not be a Christian. I had exactly the gospel, and I presented it. And these are people that notoriously reject Christ. And because it was presented as art, they had to respect my art form. And so anyways, I get extremely sick like the next day. And I was like, oh man, I was like bedridden for like 4 days. I couldn't do anything. It was like all my strength was like gutted. Wow. I just, from that place in my bed, started to recognize that my spiritual disciplines are not at the level of where they need to be in order for me to maintain operating at the level that I'm operating in the world. And I just took it as, it could be a coincidence, but I just took it as, this is a spiritual attack. It's not as much a physical. It's manifesting as physical, but I just need more coverage, spiritually. So I was like watching sermons and stuff while I was sick, and there was this one sermon, I don't even remember the message, but it was this prophet guy. His name is Joshua Giles, and he was just preaching and prophesying, and I just like, there was just like a quickening in my spirit. And when he's prophesying, and I just received it all, and I immediately got up from the bed, and I just went outside and started walking, and it was still hard to breathe and everything, but I just kept walking one step at a time. And I didn't stop walking all day. I just kept walking. And I just remember it was like a prayer walk. I was praying the whole time, and I just remember telling God that every day you give me to live, I'm going to give back to you in worship. Like, I might not have a lot of, because at this point I was so used to being overwhelmed, busy, just doing a bunch of important things. But then I started to see that I can't do anything important if I'm not alive, and like if I'm not well, if I'm not, so if I do have life, I'm going to spend the life I do have, or the day that I do have, in worship, and everything else comes second to that. So then on that walk, God gave me the idea to do a 90-day worship challenge where I invite the public in, because that helps me to stay consistent and keep my word. So I started doing worship on YouTube every single day for 90 days. That very next day after that walk, and just spontaneous worship. And man, my life did get extremely busy again once I got my strength back. But I just had to keep remembering that the only reason I have strength is because of Him. So give the first of my strength back to Him in worship, and that will be the strategy for being able to endure and remain at the level that I'm operating on. And so I started, actually, the first day of the 90 days was October 8th, which was ironically the day after the war started in Israel. And so when we shot that music video, it was like November 3rd. Yeah. So I was like a little less than 30 days into my 90-day worship.
Yeah, I remember that. And I remember you were stressing me out a little bit that day because I was ready to shoot. But you said we are not starting. You have to do that space of worship, and you protected that. And I'm over here like looking at the clock, like you got to go get your makeup done. But I remember that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there were so many inconvenient things that happened during those 90 days that people were like, okay, you're going to miss your flight, or like just going into one of my favorite unique places to go off and worship was in the breastfeeding pods at the airport. Like you could they have these little private rooms that are created for moms to go feed. Yeah. And I would just go in there for like 15, 20 minutes and just like spontaneously worship. So there's all sorts of different creative ways that I had to keep the 90 days. And then streaming it on YouTube helped me to like not just cut myself slack and be like, oh, it doesn't matter. Because there were people waiting for me as well to come on and worship. So.
Wow. Yeah. Was there ever a time like in your life, obviously now you are like incredible at what you do and you're known for it, but was there ever a time where you felt crazy for going after, your dreams or what's on your life, where it felt like, this, like, am I crazy, or do I need to do something else?
Sometimes you might be crazy, it's debatable sometimes, some of the decisions that I've made. And I guess the biggest thing is that your most important asset is your faith. And it requires no faith to do things that make sense, that it's like, oh yeah, 2 + 2 is 4. Like if you do this, it will equal this, it's just, and sometimes I need to take those routes, like do the stuff that makes sense. Yeah. But it's the things that have never been proven before that create legends. It's the stuff that, like, how come no one does it like this? Well, it hasn't been proven that way. Well, I guess I'll be the one to find out why no one does it this way. and in your process of finding out why people don't do it that way, maybe you'll find out that it could have been done that way. It's just no one had the courage to try. And so, like, the best, and you might have 1,000 things that you tried that proved to be crazy. All it takes is one time that you explored something that was uncharted, unproven, and you did it by faith, and you discovered a gold mine. You discovered the Americas. You discovered that the earth is round and not flat. Like, all it takes is one time. And all of the great innovative minds of history were considered to be crazy, and so I think it's important to just firstly love, and this statement I'm about to say is, it's like people say it all the time, and it's probably overrated, but it's important to love yourself, because you have a unique perspective, and most people opt out of exercising their unique perspective because it's not the popular perspective, and it's the perspective of we like to go to the path of least resistance, but to be an individual is the path of most resistance. And so to be a unique individual, the way that God made you, with the perspective that God gave you. And so because there's a lot of resistance in that, most people, they kind of jump ship. They abort their unique, perspective on life, or their unique approach to life, or they exist, but only to the extent that there is no friction.
Wow.
But it's that, going against the grain, being able to, like, sometimes you might be the only person that is cheering for you, and, I used to practice running marathons. It's excruciating, like the journey, but it was to train my mind for the kind of mental blockages I would need to overcome in order to endure until the end as a unique individual, with or without companions, with or without a support system, with or without cheerleaders. Because I would run these marathons by myself, with there's no particular finish line where people are waiting for you to cheer you on and all that stuff. I mean, that's wonderful. That's great. But, like, when you're doing something that is not proven, more than likely people will advise you, against it. Yeah. And you have to have faith enough to know that God will keep you on your journey, on what He destined you to create, to birth, to forge, whether people are with you or not. And you also have to recognize that people are assigned to different parts of your journey as well, and so you might have, like, God is with you on the entirety of the journey, but there are different legs, and so someone might run a mile with you, and then you have to be willing to keep going on your path when a fork is in the road and their path leads them in a different direction. And not be bitter or anything. It's just we have two different paths at this point. And and then be okay later down the road to run with people again, and not be bitter about the fact that your last friend wasn't able to come with you the full distance, so let me not open my heart again. Like, it's a full journey, and the big thing is that you have the mind to run it, whether you have a whole support system, which is amazing when you do, or you just have yourself and your camera and your notebook for a couple years, and you're able to keep moving without cheerleaders and people affirming you. And actually, it might be the opposite, where people are detracting and when are you going to get a job? When are you going to, when are you going to do something that makes sense? And like that, it's just the journey of a forerunner. It's the journey of, it's not just the creative's journey. I think that the journey of faith pioneers, like if you read Hebrews chapter 11, and then you compare that journey to the journey of some of the greatest artists, it's a very similar journey. Yeah. Whether they are Christians or not, like some of the greatest artists, like you just had to believe against all odds, like calling things that are not as though they were. Like, why does this person think that they could make it? Like, just all sorts of things where there are similarities. And so as a Christian that is a creative, as a Christian that is an artist, I get to look at the saints, the pioneers of the kingdom of God, really, and say that this journey is in the family, and it's the same journey that they walked. And they, it's not just about fighting for art, but it's fighting for the kingdom. And the journeys are one and the same. When I fight for my art, this is a fight for the kingdom. Some places, they are becoming increasingly more antichrist, especially like in Europe and stuff. But they are very artistic, and they're open to unique forms of artistic expression. And so I think a lot of the future evangelism and missionary work is going to be in the form of excellent art. Because apart from making an artistic statement, in some places people just don't want to hear it. And they have they're actually actively working against Christ. Wow. But there's always room for a song, or a movie, or, a collection of photographs, or, it's all of these various mediums you can put Christ in. And so, this is
it's so good.
This is the new kind of missionary, I believe. Yeah, the saints of old.
Yeah, I got a question with that, because you're really hitting on something, like this reality that it takes courage to really step into what you're talking about, and so I want to even ask you, because I feel like you're someone who's been forged by fire. So like when you bring your creativity to a space, you're very sure that God is with you, and I've seen that on you, and I mean, whether I don't know if this room is, we can all hear you, but from the moment that I met you, and even before I met you, I've been listening to your music, and I would encounter God to it, and so, but you're in a space where a lot of people aren't believers, where a lot of people aren't Christian, And so what you're saying, we know that it carries a lot of weight. How have you really grown your courage when it comes to creating art?
Well, my courage has definitely grown and expanded over the years, but I'm trying to think back to my earliest courageous moments. I think I'm thinking back to being petrified in high school. Honestly, I think courage comes from a place of like not having anything to lose. I think it comes from a place of like, being to the end of yourself, and if I perish, I perish, kind of like that. Because I'm remembering back to being in high school, and I was homeschooled most of my life, and then when I was like 15, 16, my parents separated, and there was like a big custody battle, and the judge ordered that all of us be put into public schools. And so like our whole life was being turned upside down. Like, where we lived, we had to move out. Like our parents were no longer together. We had to go into public school. Just everything we knew and were familiar with was just turned upside down. So I'm in high school with all these kids that have a lot of different stories and belief systems and moral values, and I just remember like at the time I was really moved by the story of David Wilkerson, who was an evangelist that spread the gospel amongst gangs, and he shared the love of Jesus with the most notorious gang members, and he interceded for them, and then they got saved. And so I just remember, like, I was going to David Wilkerson's church at the time, which was in New York City, and I just was so inspired by that story that I was like, you know what, I want to live my life for Christ and see the Lord transform the most notorious sinners too. Like, I just wanted to do something great for God, because I didn't really, like, that's the most meaningful way for my life to count for something. And my life is in shambles anyway. My whole world, my whole world is just pretty much gone. Before that, I was singing with my brothers and sisters pretty much every day in Central Park. And then the judge ordered that we don't sing anymore in the park. And so it was just all these things that were taken from me. But I just thought, I can, like, this is like living and taking risks for God is like more meaningful than any of those things I lost anyway. And so I just felt like I didn't have anything to lose. So I just remember, like, I was looking for something that I could do to, like, express my faith in God and share the gospel. And I remember there was this bench outside the school in the parking lot where kids would always go and smoke weed and do illegal stuff. And it was the group of the bullies and the bad kids and all that. And so I just had the idea that I go over there to that bench and I share the gospel with all those people. And so I was so petrified. And I did it anyway. Like, I was like 15 years old. I just remember every step I took towards that group of kids, I was like, it's not too late to turn around. It's not too late to turn around. And then I I went there, I stood on top of the bench, and I said, "Excuse me, everybody, if I could just get your attention." And then I have a special, important message. I just want you to know that Jesus loves you. And then everyone started laughing, and then just like, "Get out of here!" Like, and he died on the cross for you. And this, like, I just had all these things. Man, I became so famous in that school so fast as a laughing stock. Just walking, just walking down the hallways. Everyone's like, "There's, that's the girl, that's her." Oh my gosh. And then people mocking me like, "Excuse me, everybody, Jesus loves you," all this stuff. But really, I didn't have anything to lose. You know what I mean? It just was like my world was already pretty much just like shattered. And this was something meaningful that I could do with the ashes that were left. And so, yeah, people mocked me or whatever, but I mean, it wasn't more painful than what I was going through anyway. So I went back like every day, and they made fun of me every day. But eventually they started listening to me. And then I remember I wasn't very good at the guitar because I just started playing the guitar, but I wrote a song for them, and it was the second song I had ever written in my life. It's called Redemption. And it was just designed for them. It was a song written to articulate the gospel to the lost, to the addicted, to, you know. And here's the thing. I could have easily joined the Christian club. There was a Christian club of people, you know, who like joined together twice a week to worship and have Bible study. Like, I could have done that stuff, but it didn't take any courage to do that. You know, it didn't take any, it didn't cost me anything. It just, you know, and so I think that was probably my first real, like, courageous act. And I think like the Lord really honored me because my career turned out to be to the lost and to the notorious sinners and the notorious, you know, people in drugs and all sorts of stuff. But as a Christian, not having to change my narrative in order to appease the culture that I'm in, that I'm among. And so, I think the courage really came from just being dead already. So there's really not much that not much more they can make me lose. Wow. And then there were times when I did have a lot to lose. And I still chose the thing that would make me lose, you know, my audience or, you know, so I think the biggest thing is to never get to a place where you can't do the hard thing because you're afraid of what you'll lose. I think doing the hard thing in obedience, or at least you believe you're in obedience. Sometimes your mind is being deceived, but still, God will honor. God will honor your faith. The big point is that, you know, you just don't let the fear of man, fear of death, fear of loss stop you from making the statement that you were born to make. And for me, that statement, I decided I wanted to spend my reputation on making the statement of Jesus Christ. And yeah, that's it.
Wow. Was that good, y'all? Yeah. Yeah, that was so good. We're all just like sitting here like, wow. Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, there's just so much of what you said. I think I think it's so powerful. You're really talking about surrender, that I think that the creatives that are the most courageous are the most surrendered. And I'm just sitting here listening to you, and I can go back to the moments where I felt that moment of being courageous, but then realizing like I'm okay on the other side.
Right.
Like, oh, I didn't die, even though I thought I was. Like, I'm okay. Oh, and then the next moment of courage, where I have the opportunity to step out, and then I remind myself of, oh, remember that last time I didn't die? I actually, I know this feeling of being in over my head, or whatever that thing is that I'm about to step over. So I'm so grateful that, all of the wisdom that you just shared with us. I feel like there is an impartation in everything that you just shared.
Your mind can always tell you that, death is imminent. If you take this step, if you better not do this or else you'll die. Like, your mind can always, create a scenario in which you do. And I think that the important thing is to be okay with that. I guess what I'm saying is that there is a scenario in which man does have the power to kill you. Even the scriptures say, Jesus says, to fear the one who has the power to kill the body and the soul. Like Jesus. Just look at Jesus. He knew they have the power to, people could kill him. Many times he said the thing that would cause people to want to stone him. Yeah. And then he dipped out before they could stone him because that wasn't his time. But then his time did come, and I think ultimately it's just important to have a mindset that recognizes that death, even if it does happen, it does not have the final say. Yeah. So therefore, even if that outcome were to come, that still is not enough to stop me from what God has assigned me to do. Yeah. Like, it's just not a valid reason for me to not obey, if that makes sense. And it can be painful. But most of the things we're dealing with is probably not life and death of our physical body, at least as Americans, but it could be life and death of your brand. Right. I've had to deal with that. Like, you've spent so much time, so much effort, so much, like being a slave to your brand to make sure that it always is, alive and healthy, and people perceive you a certain kind of way. And, I just think that in general, the fear of death is really what needs to be afraid of, because the fear of death has the power to stop you from taking those the biggest risks, where the reward that everyone will benefit from is on the other side of those risks. And so I think it's just important to be okay with, even if something dies, death does not have the final say. Like, I operate in authority over death, and so, yeah, just having that confidence is really the key.
Wow. Was this good, y'all? Wow.